we grew up on a small farm, old farm. It was a farm this guy rented out to my mother. My mother actually used to be his maid, and he doing pretty good for himself, and he moved to the city. But he still had this. He probably had about 60 cows still on the property, back in the pasture. Every now and then he'd come and feed and birth out some of the young calves or whatever. But we actually lived in like rural Mississippi in Byhailya. We had probably like 15 acres we were living on. Just plus land all around us, berries, raspberries, and peach trees, and wild grapes growing everywhere. And we lived a pretty good life, Everything was going all right. My mom used to, every day around about 12 o'clock, go get eggs from the chicken. It was every day or every other day. Me and her and my nephew would actually go get eggs. And let me set this up for you. It was me, my mom, my nephew. He was a year younger than me, and my three sisters. We lived on the property. We had an old barn, old barn. It was kind of fenced off. I always wondered why it was fenced off. In the back, we had a chicken coop, an old smokehouse that was abandoned, and we had probably about 15 to 20 chickens that my mother would get eggs from and sell eggs and stuff like that. And we had 2 dogs on the property. Like I said, we was living pretty good, out there, not a care in the world. One day, it was probably around about noontime. We had just got the eggs, and my mom was trying to hurry us up so she could get back in and walk to the stores around about 12 o'clock. I don't know whether it was one life to live. I'm not sure. She's young and the rest of keep us, close to her side because she didn't want to be disturbed. She wanted us right beside us. She didn't want us making no noise or nothing because, not women off their stores or whatever. And so she just got into the program when the phone rang. And it was one of our neighbors. She was all hysterical and kind of frantic on the phone or whatever. And she got to telling my mom that she was out putting her clothes on the line, like how country people do. Back then we ain't having no washer and dryer. Back then she lived in a trailer. Like I said, we didn't have running water in our house ourselves. So that's how country folks do. They put the clothes out on the line. And she said she went out. She had her clothes line set up on the side of her trailer. And she had her baby out. And the baby was probably like 2 or 3. And she was putting the clothes up. And she had the baby. She said the baby was beside her at first. And all of a sudden, she looked around. She didn't see the baby. And then she heard the baby cry real hysterical like. And she went around to the front of the property. And she said she saw a creature had picked up her baby up on his arm and was walking down the driveway with it. And she got all panicky and she didn't know what to do. So she grabbed the old garden hoe. So she gave chase to the thing and hit it in the back of the head, and the creature dropped the baby. She got the baby and ran back in the house, and she said that the creature, ran down the road, headed towards the woods, toward our house. And she knew that, my mom had us, I was little, my nephew was little, and like she was, fearing for our safety. And so we looking at my mom, looking like, because she's starting to get nervous and looking out the window and jumping up and down and don't know what to do. And all of a sudden, the lady said that she had called the sheriff, and the sheriff was actually outside looking around her property to see had the creature moved on or whatever. But the sheriff told the lady it probably was a bear. I never seen a bear pick up a child and walk down the road with it or whatever. That's what happens a lot around here when people have Bigfoot sightings. It always equates to a bear, but nobody ain't never seen a bear around here. But, my mother, she got all panicky. She got up, started closing windows, locking doors. And, that was something new to me and my nephew because we saw her hysterical locking doors. So we never locked our doors. We never locked our windows. it wasn't no need to lock our windows because, you know, it was real rural in the country. Nobody was coming around. If somebody was coming to our house, we knew about it. We could hear them coming up that drive probably about 5 minutes before they got to the house because the driveway was probably about 30 to 40 yards. So we could hear anybody coming to our, you know, our house. So she's all panicking and stuff, locking windows and closing doors. We, you know, she getting nervous and we got nervous. We didn't know why. You know, we just heard her say something about a monster. I'm like, a monster? You know, oh, we looking like, okay, this playtime, make believe. We didn't know anything about a monster. And next thing you know, my mom is, she always had an old bolt action rifle and a shotgun, and we know she had them because they was behind the doors. That's where she kept them, but they weren't never loaded. And she went up under the bed, started getting shells and bullets and loading up everything and closing up windows. And she had us, you know, by her side. She was real panicking for a while, you know, just looking out the windows. And she got to thinking, you know, my sisters, I had two sisters that was out at school. And she got to thinking about, you know, my sister got to walk down that long driveway by themselves. So she told us just to stay in the house. She got the old bolt action rifle and walked down to the end of the road and walked them back, you know, down to the house. And she was wondering, you know, what's going on. You know, my sister was wondering what's going on. But, you know, by that time, you know, a lot of people around the little town had heard about it, you know, because, you know, a lot of people thought the woman was crazy just making stuff up. But, you know, they always say when something is, you know, they have a sighting like that, they always say something is out. So, you know, folks were calling my mother's house telling her that something was out. You know, I looked at my mom, I was like, you doing all this for a monster? I'm like I said, I thought monsters were make-believe. And, you know, she had to know something beforehand. My mother had to know something beforehand because it's not every day somebody call your house and say a monster picked up their kid. And you're probably like, okay, you've been drinking too much moonshine, just lay down for a while or something. We never had any kind of inkling that, you know, something like that was around. But, you know, I guess she had heard of it before or something like that. And so she got my sisters in the house. And people are calling the house back to back asking, are we all right? And my grandfather called. And he heard about it. He heard about it. It was in our area. And he knew that we had that old barn that was, you know, off a couple of yards from the house. You know, we never went in there. Like I say, it was a fence around it. It was like kind of off in a pasture to itself. Then we had a smokehouse. It really didn't have a door on it. The only thing that was in the smokehouse was like old, you know, one of those chokers that you put on the old mules or something that's plowing the field. That was the only thing in there. So if a creature wanted to come up in there and just rest or, you know, safe haven or whatever, it could have in the barn or either, you know, the old smokehouse. And so my granddad came over. He came over probably around about 6 o'clock. And my other sister, she got off work from Memphis. And her fiance, he came over with a gun. And my uncle that lived in Memphis, he actually made the 25-mile drive from Memphis to our house, and he had guns. And so, you know, me and my nephew was looking like, you know, every time we see somebody with a gun, they about to go rabbit hunting or something like that. So it kind of had us like, what's going on? Everybody's calling, everybody's showing up. And so, they got around. I guess they were talking about stories of, you know, about the creature or whatever. Like they heard about it before. And so by that time, it's probably around about 7 o'clock. You know, every night around about 7 o'clock, my mother would have me and my nephew in the bed. You know, it's not kids' time after 7, so she would have us in the bed. We got bedded down. Probably about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, we wake up to gunshots. I mean, it's just lit up. I mean, everybody's shooting outside. We woke up crying because, you know, it scared the hell out of us. We waking up to gunshots. Our bed was right by the window. We could just see the lights flashing from the guns or whatever, the flashback from the guns or whatever. And it scared the hell out of us, man. And they said that they heard the chickens going off. And my uncle went outside, and he said he thought he saw a black panther on all fours. He said it was really low, like belly crawling to the chicken coop. And he saw that. He went back inside, got the gun, and it was still there. And he said it was on fours looking at him. And he started shooting. By that time, my brother-in-law came out and my grandfather came out, and they just lit the place up. They said they don't know if they hit it or not, but they said they scared the hell out of it. They said they ain't never saw nothing run like that. And so my uncle said he thought it probably was a black panther. He said probably all the fuss was about a black panther. It probably was a black panther that got hold of the woman's baby or whatever. And so they stayed the night. And after that, it kind of died down some. But the only weird thing that kept happening, well, I think like 2 days of that week and the next week, the landlord's cows kept getting out. We would wake up, and our house set on cinder blocks. Our house set up probably about 2 to 3 feet off the ground. And when those cows got out of that pasture, they headed straight to those cinder blocks, and it woke us up because they was looking on their cinder blocks trying to get the salt out of the cinder block, and they would wake you up. And I would wake up looking out the window like, what in the hell is going on? All these cows, we got 60 cows in our front yard. And my mom looking like she don't know how in the hell those cows, got in the yard. And so she called the landlord. He was like, what y'all got going on over here? Y'all letting my cows out. He thought that, me and my nephew maybe went back there and let the latch out on it. And the next week, it happened again. We wake up, the cows are out. And so, the stuff about the monster, it died down or whatever. But, me and my nephew, we were around there with kids. We around there playing like we got toy guns. Pew, pew, pew. I shot the monster. We constantly just playing like we shot the monster or whatever. And like say the next week, the cows came out again. And that time the landlord, he was kind of pissed. He came back. He put the latch back on it, but he also got a big chain, like a big link chain, a real heavy duty one. And he put it over like a steel rod. So if the gate did come open, you would have to lift that chain up over that steel pole. And so, he came back and put them back in or whatever. And that Saturday, my other sister from Memphis and her husband came down, and they had my other nephew with us. We was kind of happy to see them because, it was, long periods of time before we saw one another. When we came down, my mother would always cook, and we would have a good time. And actually, they started up a baseball game in the front yard. But me and my nephew, we never wanted to play baseball or nothing. Like, we like to look at it. We didn't want to play baseball. So we just running around or whatever. We still, still all excited about the monster. And so we walking around the back part of the property. And my nephew, he would always love to go jump on that gate, that aluminum gate that was adjacent to the pasture that, let the cows in and out. And he would run and jump up on the gate and, look at the cows. So we were back there this time. He ran and jumped up on the gate. And while he was on it, the gate opened up. It was already open. I'm like, wow. And when the gate pushed in, he had to push the gate in. When it went in, he just froze and jumped off the gate and just stood still for a minute. I was like, what's wrong with him? And next thing you know, he just shot past me like a bolt of lightning and said, monster. And I was like, oh, he's playing again. And I was thinking, like, I got to go close this gate up before these cows get out. My mom's going to tan our house if she think, we're the ones that's letting these cows out. And so I go to get the gate. I walked in the pasture probably about 6 to 7 feet to pull the gate back in. And I turned around, pulling the gate, and looked off to the side, and I see the monster. He's standing up there beside a oak tree and a weeping willow. To this day, I hate weeping willows with a passion. He's in between the weeping willow and this other. I guess it had to be an oak tree, and he's standing up there with both hands on a branch. It almost looked like he was pulling himself up and down on the branch, trying to see through the weeping willow. He was almost as tall as the weeping willow. I had to give him probably about 6.5 to 7 feet. But the weeping willow, it was like a new tree. It wasn't a full blown, weeping willow. He would have never been able to see over. He could have got in the head, but he was behind the weeping willow, and he had his hands resting on the top branch. And he was pulling himself up, like ducking up and down, trying to see, through the trees. And it kind of froze me for a minute. It's like all my insides, just like my intestines, just dropped. And I'm looking at this thing. This can't be real. I'm like, is this what it is? I'm like, the closest thing I seen to this is the Abominable Snowman on Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And I'm thinking to myself, Santa Claus is fake, but the Abominable Snowman is real. And suddenly I just snapped out of it and ran off. The creature never did see me. He didn't even look my way. I guess he was too busy trying to find out what everybody was doing in the front yard. Everybody was playing baseball. I guess that kind of had him curious or whatever what was going on. I ran off. I went and told my mom, the monster's in the pasture. He's in the back pasture. The gate is open. And my mom, it had calmed down. So she really didn't believe us. Like y'all better not have been back there and opened up that pasture. Opened up that fence on the pasture. And so she got my brother-in-law. They went back there, and they saw it was open. She knew something was up, but she didn't know, if we opened it or it really was a monster back there. And so, that was my experience when I saw it. But like I said, it was about 6.5 to 7 feet. It kind of had, it was jet black. It was kind of slender. It wasn't, like how you see in the Patty films or whatever, real bucket. This was kind of slender, like I hear everybody say like a track star or something. But he was just a little bit more, muscular than a track star or whatever. Like I said, I didn't get a real good look at his face because I was looking at him from a side view. And he kind of had like his hair on his face was kind of. I know what a child looks like, how their hair kind of comes in front of their face a little bit from the side. That's what it kind of looked like. But I could tell that, the little features that I did see in his face, I could see that his face was rather long. I could see that, that he didn't have like a muzzle or whatever, but his mouth kind of protruded out a little bit. And, it kind of died down after that. But, that same night, like I said, my brother-in-law's sister was in town. They had my other nephew with them. And he spent the night with us. And, he woke up the next morning. The first thing he did when he woke up, he went and got the phone and he called back to Memphis and told his dad to come get him. Please come get him. He was nervous, crying, like, what's wrong with you? He said, last night I woke up. I heard a noise and looked up at the window because the bed he was sleeping in was on the wall and it was facing the window. He said, I didn't know y'all had monkeys down here. I said, what you mean? He said, all night a monkey was just staring at me. I said, why you ain't saying anything? He said he was too scared. He just pulled the covers over his head and went to sleep. And, he, to this day, he will tell you that it was a big monkey looking at him through the window. Like I said, our house set on cinder blocks, probably like 3 cinder blocks. So it had to be at least about 7 feet to look in our windows because our window was kind of tall. And like I said, it was sitting on cinder blocks.